Hello adventurers, goblins, and everybody else trying to justify yet another expensive dice purchase. Welcome to today's extremely scientific ranking of the Dungeons & Dragons classes by vibes. Before you grab your pitchforks and roll for initiative against me, let's slow down a little bit and define exactly what I mean by vibes. When I say vibes, I'm looking at how easy and how exciting it is to roleplay each class, and how much potential each has to spark unique, engaging characters with really cool backstories. We're not measuring raw combat power or your ability to effortlessly dispatch goblins. As satisfying as that is, this is not that video. Instead, I'm going to use a few precise and totally unbiased criteria to rank these classes. And the first of these is going to be stereotypes. Every class comes loaded with cliches. Think of the edgy rogue lurking in a tavern, or the overly zealous paladin. We're checking how pervasive these stereotypes are and how creatively you can subvert or expand beyond them. And then next I'm going to talk about the stats, focusing particularly on charisma and other stats that encourage role-playing. Charisma-heavy classes naturally open the door for negotiation, charm, and diplomacy, those hilarious and epic role-play moments that make your game master either laugh or cry. Then abilities. Does this class come packed with built-in story hooks or character arcs? Or are they about as interesting as a bag of stale trail rations? Warlocks, for instance, have ready-made drama within their mysterious patrons, which is practically role-playing gold. And then finally, we're introducing the wildcard criteria, the drama potential. Because let's be honest, great D&D sessions thrive on drama, chaos, and hilariously terrible decisions. Well, we've got to start somewhere with this list, and it might as well be the fighter. We love you dearly, but you end up being the most uninspiring class in the entire game. So let's tackle this metaphorical elephant in the room. Starting with stereotypes. Fighters are often stereotyped as straightforward, no-nonsense warriors. They're the classic, I have a sword and I swing my sword. Easily pigeonholed as the muscle-bound mercenary or the grizzled veteran with a tragic past. And while these tropes aren't inherently bad, they're so prevalent, it takes extra effort and creativity to create a truly unique fighter character that steps outside the cliches. In the stats department, well, fighters typically prioritize strength, constitution, or dexterity, and charisma, that cornerstone stat for rich role-playing and engaging social encounters, is frequently treated as a dump stat. And this significantly narrows the range of naturally compelling interactions that fighters can engage in. It's not impossible to roleplay an engaging fighter, but the stats don't inherently encourage vibrant social dynamics. A fighter's abilities, while highly effective in combat, offer minimal built-in narrative depth. Abilities like Action Surge, Second Wind, and multiple attacks per round reinforce combat efficiency, but they don't inherently provide story hooks or narrative arcs, unlike classes with patron interactions like divine interventions or magical mishaps. Fighter abilities don't directly lend themselves to compelling storytelling beyond the battlefield prowess. And finally, the drama potential. While any character class can create drama with enough creativity, fighters don't have intrinsic drama potential built into their class mechanics. Fighter drama usually comes from external sources like personal backgrounds, party dynamics, or game master crafted scenarios, not inherently from the class itself. This means players must actively pursue and invent narrative opportunities rather than finding them organically within their class mechanics. Joining the fighter is the Barbarian. This lands in the D tier and is often finding themselves defined almost exclusively by rage and physical power. The classic image of a barbarian is that of the angry brute, who resolves every problem with brute force and unending fury, and they're really good at it, but we're creating this list, so here it is. The stereotype is so pervasive, it can severely limit character depth and hamper creativity. Creating a barbarian who breaks the mold often requires considerable storytelling gymnastics. And then in the stats department, barbarians typically prioritize strength and constitution. Similar to fighters, charisma often gets dumped because charisma is central to social roleplay and not combat damage. There's no reason for a barbarian to heavily invest in it. Abilities like rage, reckless attack, and unarmored defense significantly enhance combat, but offer very little narrative or role-playing depth. Unlike classes with magic or supernatural elements that create immediate story hooks, the barbarian just reinforces the stereotype, the rage and toughness, without adding complexity to the personal stories. And in drama, barbarians kind of lack in their built-in drama, down from their class mechanics and everything else, unlike classes with divine patrons or mysterious magical origins. And while they certainly can experience dramatic arcs, it typically arises from external storytelling, like personal backgrounds, party relationships, or game master crafted events. A player must actively seek out or invent opportunities to enrich their character's stories with a barbarian. Now that we're out of the D tier, let's venture into the woods on this next one. The Ranger is going to be the first to get the upgrade, landing in C tier. Rangers are often portrayed as solitary wilderness experts, more comfortable tracking through forests than navigating social situations. The classic archetype, like mysterious loners who prefer animal companionship to conversation, has become a common trope, limiting the class's narrative flexibility. However, this doesn't mean Rangers are stuck in this mold. There is a compelling mystique about a character who walks the line between civilization and the wild, and leaning into that duality can yield some truly memorable roleplay. Wandering further, we could take a closer look at their stats. The Ranger prioritizes dexterity and wisdom, which makes them perceptive, nimble, and highly effective in environmental exploration. These traits can open the door for roleplay rooted in intuition, insight, and survivalism. And while charisma isn't usually a focus, limiting classic social encounters, wisdom can support meaningful introspective roleplay. A ranger might not be the party face, but they can serve as its moral compass or the quiet observer who drops game-changing insight at just the right moment. And in regards to abilities, rangers come equipped with a toolkit that sings in the right campaign. Favorite enemy, natural explorer, sometimes spellcasting, and the ever-iconic animal companion depending on your class. These features offer flavorful storytelling hooks, like who's your favorite enemy and why? What part of the world shaped you? And while these abilities don't scream drama the way a Warlock's Pact does, they do provide a strong thematic backbone that players can expand on with personal stakes. And then there's the drama potential. Call it their trail of emotional breadcrumbs, if you will, but Rangers excel when the story pulls them into the wilds, pits them against ancient threats, or tasks them with protecting sacred ground. There's inherent gravitas in a character who's bonded with nature, especially when that bond is tested. Their drama may be quieter than a bard's scandal or a paladin's crisis of faith, but it's no less rich. It just tends to grow in the background rather, like moss on a stone. Subtle, but evocative. Rangers landed in the C tier not because they lack flavor, but because their roleplay strengths require the right narrative terrain to flourish. They offer thematic consistency, a wealth of introspective depth and storytelling potential rooted in survival and connection to nature. But their vibe doesn't come prepackaged the way it does for some other classes, which is why they land right in the middle of the trail. Let's take a deep breath, let's center ourselves, and explore the monk. It may be C tier, but it's one of my absolute favorite classes, and it saddens me that none of my players have ever used this class. If you're watching, you know what you have to do. The monk has a narrative image that comes pre-installed, the enlightened magical artist. Monks are often portrayed as stoic, disciplined ascetics who speak in cryptic wisdom and meditate more than they talk. While cool in theory, this stereotype can become creatively restricting. That said, it's also iconic, And for players looking to channel their inner kung fu master or wandering philosopher, a monk provides a flavorful and focused foundation. And when it comes to stats, monks lean heavily on dexterity and wisdom. This combo makes them fast, alert, and insightful, a trait that lends themselves well to thoughtful or reactive roleplay. Sure, charisma tends to sit at the bottom of the stat priority list, so monks may not shine in the persuasion department, but wisdom is no slouch in roleplay. It makes them keen observers, reliable intuitives, and great moral compasses like the ranger, played with care. Their abilities, sleek and stylish, and very thematic. Unarmored movement, martial arts, deflect missiles, and step of the wind all scream, "I am a living weapon." And these mechanics reinforce the fantasy of a character who has mastered both body and mind. Mechanically, the monks are built for fast-paced tactical action, and narratively, that opens the door for character concepts like a restless wanderer, a guilt-ridden exile, or a rebel from a broken monastery. However, what holds them back from higher tiers is that these features are often insular. They enhance the monk's personal expression, but don't naturally invite group storytelling or external conflict in the way something like a warlock's patron or a bard's social chaos might. And now for the drama potential. This is where it gets a little interesting. Monks can have incredibly compelling internal conflicts. They have the burden of self-control, the tension between peace and violence, or the clash between training and the chaos of an adventuring life. However, the class doesn't hand you that drama on a silver platter. It expects you to dig a little for it. And unlike classes with built-in dramatic triggers like a cleric's god or a paladin's oath, monk drama is more philosophical and more subdued. That's a strength if you want to craft a slow burn character arc, but it's a hurdle if you're looking for instant narrative hooks. And all told, the monk sits in the C tier because they offer very specific vibes, one that thrives in the hand of a thoughtful player, but doesn't necessarily play well in a wide range of story types. When played with intention and a bit of narrative elbow grease, a monk can be poetic. And now we're going to jump from C to B tier, starting out with something that's not officially a Wizards of the Coast creation, but I would be just so heartbroken if I didn't include MCDM's Illrigger class from this list. It sits in B tier for many reasons, and I had to do some soul searching not to place it in the A tier. So first, let's talk about its stereotypes. The Illrigger's entire concept is dripping with flavor. A martial powerhouse bound to devilish hierarchy, serving dark masters, and clad in edgy, immaculate armor. Yes, it leans heavily into the fallen knight or charismatic tyrant archetype, but here's the twist. It does so with intention and narrative weight. Unlike classes that fall into tropes by accident, the Illrigger practically demands you build a backstory soaked in ambition, temptation, betrayal, or redemption. It doesn't fight its stereotypes, it refines them. On the stat front, Illriggers are all about charisma and dexterity or strength, and that charisma, it's doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Whether you're rallying infernal allies, intimidating your enemies, or deceiving entire courts, the Illrigger's stat profile pushes you straight into the social spotlight. This is a martial class that thrives on manipulation, not just a muscle. And it's rare to find a heavy armor-wearing anti-hero whose presence in a tavern's conversation is just as potent as their presence on the battlefield. In the ability department, this is where their vibes go from good to devilish. Subclasses like the Shadowmaster, Painkiller, and Architect of Ruin are dripping with narrative potential. Their spells and aura abilities ooze authority and menace. And their class features practically beg you to explore dark pacts, shifting loyalties, and the cost of power. The Illrigger is a class that makes your backstory feel alive at the table. Whether you're an elegant tyrant, the reluctant servant of hell, or a villain slowly crawling towards redemption, the mechanics actually support the drama that you want to create here. And speaking of drama, Illriggers are walking, talking drama factories. I tried to say that the first time and it was like a tongue twister. Every subclass ability is flavored with infernal implications. Are you rising in the infernal ranks? Are you being watched, judged, tested? Is your soul getting traded for power? Or is someone else's? Unlike some martial classes that require a player to invest in the drama from scratch, the Illrigger's structure hands you story hooks with a devilish grin. So why aren't they an A tier or S tier? Well, despite their charisma and built-in lore, Illriggers are still very niche. Their flavor is very specific: devilish, demonic, political, and power-hungry. And if your campaign doesn't support that vibe, or if your party is more wholesome forest adventurers than morally ambiguous infernal operatives, an Illrigger can feel out of sync. It's a roleplay powerhouse, but only in the right narrative soil. It's a stretch to try and make this class fit any definition of the alignment lawful good, and it would take some huge creative liberties to attempt it. Which is why, when I searched deep down, I couldn't reasonably upgrade it to A tier. So, Artificers. They're a bit of an odd duck in the D&D lineup, and that's exactly what makes them interesting. They're steampunk engineers of a mostly medieval fantasy world, and that contrast gives them immediate roleplay potential. Just by existing, an Artificer asks a big narrative question: what happens when magic meets invention? Their vibe is clever, curious, and slightly explosive. So let's start with their stereotypes, or lack thereof. Unlike paladins or rogues, Artificers don't have a widely cemented narrative cliché yet, which is honestly their strength. They're still flexible in the public imagination. Some people see them as eccentric inventors, others as arcane scientists, techie tinkerers, or even magical medics. This opens up the space to let players get creative. A paranoid gadget hoarder, a brilliant scholar whose prototypes keep exploding, or a battlefield artificer who tends to treat adventurers like a test lab. This class invites originality. In the stat department, intelligence is an artificer's bread and butter. Like wizards, they aren't natural charmers, but they excel in cerebral roleplay. Insightful, methodical, and often just a little bit mad, Artificers are great for players who love solving problems with logic, planning, or completely untested inventions. Their skill proficiencies also let them dabble in crafting and investigation, making them feel grounded in a world as creators, not just destroyers. Mechanically, their abilities lead hard into theme. Infusions are not just useful, they're a roleplay goldmine, giving party members custom gear, upgrading magical gadgets. Spellcasting comes with flavorful arcane tech flair, and subclasses like the Battlesmith or Alchemist double down on the identity of the magical inventor. Want to heal with a robot dog? Want to throw acid and fire from vials labeled definitely safe? The Artificer has you covered. Drama-wise, Artificers might not have divine patrons or warlock-level angst, but they have something just as powerful: ambition. Inventors are often obsessive, prone to tunnel vision, and surrounded by the consequences of their own creations. Whether you're trying to prove a theory, redeem a failed invention, or protect the world from your own brilliant ideas, the seeds of personal conflict are all there. You just have to plant them. Artificers offer huge flavor potential, and their vibe still requires some narrative scaffolding to really pop. They shine brightest in settings or campaigns that accommodate their tech magic hybrid concepts. In classic medieval fantasy settings, they can feel a little wandered in from another game. And while they're flexible, their social presence is usually overshadowed by a bard or sorcerer unless you build specifically to counter that. And a class without real stereotypes can sometimes make it hard to think about all that you can do with it. And now, if you've got this far in the video, good girl. Sorry boys, you'll have your chance soon. It's time to take a quick break, and when you're done checking out my Patreon, we can dive into the Paladin. Grab your holy symbol or your vow of vengeance, and let's dive into why Paladins landed in the B tier of this video. Paladins are one of the most pigeonholed classes in all of D&D. Everyone expects the lawful good, morally inflexible, sermon-slinging knight who makes everything awkward by insisting on justice in the middle of a heist. But here's the twist. That stereotype is so established that subverting it is immediately rewarding. Our sarcastic paladin, a pragmatic one, a paladin who serves an oath of conquest and is definitely not here to babysit the rogue, but that rigidity gives you something fun to push against. In regards to stats, paladins are charisma-forward martial characters. Then that alone gives them a leg up when it comes to roleplay. They can command a room, sway opinions, and smite with style. That charisma-wisdom combo, or sometimes charisma-strength, means that they're just as comfortable giving an impassioned speech as they are cutting down a demon with radiant fury. And this combo naturally encourages players to engage in social situations and lean into their convictions or their internal contradictions. Divine Smite may be the mechanical poster child for the Paladin, but there's more under the surface. Their auras provide a sense of leadership, protection, and purpose within a party. Their spells, Hello, Compel Duel, and Wrathful Smite, are oozing with roleplay favor, reinforcing their oaths and ideals. I've even used Ceremony with a DMPC Paladin to conduct a formal adoption between one of my players and another NPC. But the real gem? Their subclass features tied directly to the oaths they swear. Whether it's the righteous fury of an oath of vengeance or the unsettling zeal of an oath of conquest, those commitments are story engines. Your entire character arc can pivot around how you uphold or break that oath. Paladins are drama magnets. Their very identity revolves around the personal code or divine calling. What happens when they face moral ambiguity? What happens when their oath demands something that their heart resists? Unlike classes that need defined drama, paladins are built on it. The tension between belief and reality, faith and fallibility, make for rich storytelling, and in most of my custom campaigns, you can bet your soul I'm trying to corrupt and turn the paladin. Whether they stay devout or fall from grace, there's always a narrative arc begging to be explored here. So why not A or S tier? Because the paladin's flavor, while strong, is still narrow. Their vibe is often tied to serious, high-stakes morality and a structured worldview. If your campaigns lean goofy, chaotic, or morally gray, a paladin can feel stiff without some serious tailoring. And while breaking the stereotype is fun, everyone knows you're doing it, so it sometimes feels like more of a reaction than an original concept. Alright, up next, we're gonna step into a temple, light a few candles, and dissect why the Cleric sits in the B tier. First things first, let's look at the holy stereotype. Clerics are often painted as a healer, the devout follower of some benevolent deity, and the moral compass no one asked for. It's an image so ingrained that many players default to playing the Cleric as a sermon on legs. But here's the divine truth. That stereotype is entirely optional. The Cleric chassis is incredibly flexible. Worship a trickster god, and you're a snarky divine saboteur. Devoted to a war deity? Congratulations, you're a holy battering ram. The breadth of possible deities gives clerics a toolkit for nearly any flavor of devotion or defiance. And stat-wise, clerics are wisdom-based casters. And while they don't often rely heavily on charisma, high wisdom scores make them natural insight machines, emotionally aware, and often the party's voice of reason or unsettling spiritual dread. Depending on their god, sure, they're not the best flirts in the tavern, but they'll definitely know who's lying, cursed, and who's about to make a very bad life choice. In the ability department is where clerics shine, in subtle but narrative supporting ways. With a huge spell list and divine channel features, they can shape the battlefield and their story. A grave cleric is spooky and solemn, a trickery cleric is chaotic and sly, and a tempest cleric throws lightning like divine judgment in a bottle. These domain features are flavorful as hell, or heaven, I guess, depending on who you're worshipping, and provide immediate narrative cues for players and DMs alike. And with drama, clerics come preloaded with it. The moment your character serves a higher power, you introduce the possibility for doubt, rebellion, overzealousness, or straight up divine betrayal. What happens when your god doesn't answer, when your beliefs are tested, and when your party acts against your faith? Clerics don't just have faith, they're defined by it. That's the perfect foundation for the arcs of growth and challenge with inner conflict. It's all built in. You just have to lean into it a little bit. So, why B tier? Well, despite the wide variety, many players and DMs still default to the healer background support model. The perception can rob clerics of the narrative spotlight that they deserve. And while wisdom is great for introspective roleplay, they often need a bit more work to shine in high social, charisma-heavy scenes. They're powerful and thoughtful and dynamic, but they don't scream main character energy unless a player heavily pushes for it. And alright, here we are, A tier. When you're not a solid role player and struggling to think outside the box, this is the start of the classes where really anything goes. It's much easier here to come up with an idea in the A tier and run with it without doing some creative soul searching. I love this next class. Whenever someone plays it at my table, it's sure to be a great time. So let's slip into the shadows and pick up the narrative lock on why rogues settle comfortably into the A tier on my list. They come with one of the most recognizable stereotypes in the game. The edgy loner who always sits in the corner of the tavern, flips a coin ominously, or may or may not steal from the party. It's so common, it's basically a meme. But here's the thing. The stereotype is a springboard, not a shackle. Rogues are one of the easiest classes to customize beyond what their trope is. Want a charming con artist? Done. A narrative street urchin turned reluctant hero? Easy. Rogues wear a lot of hats. Most of them are probably stolen, that's true. But when it comes to stats, rogues are in a great place for roleplay. And they frequently invest in charisma or intelligence, which opens up strong social potential. Whether they're deceiving, persuading, or intimidating, rogues often find themselves front and center in RP-heavy scenes. And they're also skill monkeys, meaning they're constantly rolling and contributing to both combat and non-combat scenarios. If you want a character who always has something to do, a rogue is a solid bet. And their abilities are dripping with story potential. Cunning action, sneak attack, evasion, sure, they're mechanically potent, but they also reinforce a playstyle rooted in speed, cleverness, and precision. The subclass options are particularly flavorful, and each one opens up different kinds of stories, from spooky emotional arcs to high society heists. But drama is where rogues quietly excel. Their backstories practically write themselves. Former criminals, spies, rebels, fallen nobles, they're perfect for characters with secrets, shady pasts, or hidden agendas. And even in their growth arcs, there's room for great development. Learning to trust, choosing to fight for a cause, trying and sometimes failing to do the right thing. Whether it's subtle emotional tension or a full-blown redemption arc, rogues thrive on internal and interpersonal drama. So why not S tier here? Well, rogues have incredible potential and flexibility, that's true. Their drama often has to come from a player's initiative. There's no built-in patron, divine calling, or magical chaos pulling their strings. Their vibe is self-made, and that is powerful, don't get me wrong. But it means RP impact varies widely depending on how much a player invests in it. A rogue with a flat backstory can feel like a toolbox without a theme. So let's not waste any time here. Let's get on to our next class, the Sorcerer, which brings a potent vibe. Raw, untamed magical power coursing through their veins. Unlike wizards who studied or warlocks who made shady deals, sorcerers are just magic. And with that innate arcane juice comes built-in identity crises. Where did this power come from? What does it mean? Is it a blessing? A curse? This class walks into the campaign already brimming with potential backstory hooks. It's not just a vibe, it's a narrative goldmine. Stereotypically, sorcerers get pegged as either wild magic chaos gremlins or aloof chosen ones. And while those archetypes can be fun, they also open doors for subversion. What if your sorcerer hates their power and tries to suppress it? What if they lean in too hard and grow arrogant or reckless? What if the source of their magic is a family secret or the result of trauma? Sorcerers are dreams for players who want to explore character evolution through power. Stat-wise, charisma is king. It's an automatic green light for flavorful, talky roleplay. Whether you're charming nobles or intimidating rival spellcasters, a high charisma sorcerer is built to be a presence in every room. Paired with their natural flair and spell list, they often end up as the party's face whether they planned to or not. And as for abilities, they bring unique mechanical flavor. Sorcery points in metamagic is a system that doesn't just let them bend the rules of magic, it lets them express who they are through their casting style. A sorcerer who always uses subtle spell might be secretive or manipulative. One who leans on quicken spell might be impatient or adrenaline fueled. And these aren't just mechanics, they're character traits in disguise. Add in the variety of origins like draconic, shadow, aberrant, more, and you've got a buffet of thematic hooks ready to go. And then we've got the drama. Sorcerers, they're practically dripping soaking wet with it. Powers they didn't ask for, emotional volatility, and that translates directly into game mechanics. The possibility of magic flaring up at the worst possible moment, especially with subclasses like wild magic, you're inviting chaos into the narrative, and that chaos can be deeply personal. Sorcerers have the potential to become the ticking time bomb, the tragic figure, or the arcane messiah, depending on how you play it. So why are they A tier instead of S tier? Well, sorcerers have rich internal stories. They often lack external narrative scaffolding. There's no god, patron, or ancient order nudging them along. Their journey is largely self-driven, which is empowering, but it also means that their impact on the story relies heavily on the player leaning into their backstory and arc. And with the right player, they're S-tier compelling, but without that effort, they can fade into the background, behind a flashier, more externally motivated character. And at first glance, the next character on our list, you might be inclined to say, Mr. Game Master, sir, I thought this was like B tier. But druids might seem like they've been typecast as an eccentric forest dweller with a suspicious number of animal friends and a tendency to rant about deforestation. And yeah, that stereotype does exist, but what's often overlooked is just how much range a druid has. That nature-loving archetype, it's just the tip of the iceberg. Want to play a scholarly elemental theorist, a shape-shifting spy, a cosmic balance enforcer channeling ancient primal forces? You can do all of that. Done, done, and done. The class's connection to nature is a broad canvas, not a narrow box. When it comes to stats, wisdom is their bread and butter, and while it doesn't boost social encounters in the same way charisma does, it does lend itself to thoughtful, introspective characters who's going to listen before speaking, observe before acting. And let's not forget insight, perception, and animal handling are all strong roleplay tools. A druid may not talk their way into the royal court, but they will know who's lying, they'll spot a trap, and calm a rampaging dire bear with equal grace. The druid's abilities are where the vibe really starts blooming. Spellcasting tied to the natural world gives them access to thematic spell lists like fog and fire and thorns and transformation. Their abilities to wild shape is arguably one of the most flavor-packed mechanics in the game. It opens up endless narrative possibilities, and are you a druid who uses animal forms to blend in, and gather secrets, or one who only transforms under extreme emotional duress? Or maybe you're someone who feels more at home as a beast than in their human skin. Every use of wild shape can be a roleplay moment, not just a combat tactic. And then there's the drama potential. And while druids don't have divine patrons or magical bloodlines forcing the issue, their ties to nature, balance, and primal forces can often create their own narrative tension. What happens when civilization encroaches on the wild? When natural law conflicts with morality? Or when your own party wants to burn something you swore to protect? A druid's inner conflict between their human identity and their more primal instincts is fertile ground for storytelling. And they don't make it into the S tier because while they are incredibly flexible and rich in thematic flavor, they often require a little more DM buy-in to shine, if you will. Their nature-centric worldview and abilities shine brightest when the campaign engages with wilderness, spirits, or elemental forces. In an urban, heavy, intrigue-based campaign, their unique flavor might struggle to find the spotlight without moving back and forth. And now for the moment everyone's been waiting for, the S tier. So let's crack open a dusty tome, ignore all the explosions in the alchemy lab, and examine why the wizard is the first to find themselves earning this spot on the list. Right off the bat, the wizard's vibe is crystal clear. Knowledge is power, and they've got a lot of both. Whether you picture the wise old sage, the absent-minded professor, or the obsessive arcane prodigy who's 3 scrolls away from unraveling the multiverse, A wizard offers a unique roleplay that is immediately compelling and highly customizable. And unlike some classes that hand you the dramatic arc, wizards earn them through intellect, ambition, and often a healthy disregard for safety. Their stereotype, which is a bookish, powerful, sometimes hilariously oblivious mage, is ripe for both embracing and subverting. You can lean in and play the eccentric scholar who misplaces their familiar every other session. Or you can flip the roleplay script in a hyper-competent, smooth-talking, magical strategist. Wizards thrive on curiosity, and that curiosity can take 100 different forms. Noble researcher, reckless experimenter, vengeful archivist, or even the mage who's seen too much, who desperately wants to forget. Stat-wise, intelligence is their centerpiece, and while not the most direct stat for social roleplay, it gives you an edge in situations where deduction, logic, or information control matters. And with the right background and a few clever choices, you can easily turn a wizard into a party's go-to expert, diplomat, or even manipulator. Intelligence-driven characters lend themselves to cerebral roleplay, less about charming the room and more about knowing everybody's secrets before they open their mouths. Abilities? Well, wizards basically get to write their own vibe with their spellbook. With the largest spell list in the game, you can tailor your wizard to support nearly any narrative theme. Want to play a battlefield controller, magical detective, or someone who's using illusional magic to reinvent themselves daily? Go for it. The spellbook itself is a roleplay tool. Every spell learned is a decision, a clue, if you will, to who your character is and what they value. And let's not overlook the subclasses. Divination Wizard gets to play as precogs bend fate. Necromancers walk the razor's edge of life and death. And chronergy wizards can manipulate time. Each school of magic not only gives mechanical benefits, but also thematic depth that feeds into their character development. Your school just isn't a combat choice, it's a philosophy and a worldview, and it's a storytelling device to boot. Drama-wise, wizards are the foundation of it. Their thirst for knowledge can lead them to morally gray decisions. They're natural targets for forbidden secrets, ancient prophecies, and eldritch corruption. They're often isolated by their intellect, sometimes misunderstood, sometimes feared, and sometimes elevated to "we need you, but we definitely don't trust you" levels. So whether you're playing a guilt-ridden genius or an arcane megalomaniac, wizards come preloaded with narrative dynamite. And the wizards offer unparalleled flexibility in storytelling, endless customization in tone and playstyle, and natural integration into literally any campaign plot. They don't need a patron, they don't need divine missions or wild bloodlines. They're compelling because of who they choose to become. In short, wizards are the embodiment of narrative agency. Their vibe can be quiet or loud, noble or corrupt, comedic or tragic. And when you play a wizard, the real magic just isn't the spells, it's the story you build around them. Obviously, the next one on our list is the Warlock. Duh. This one is practically the poster child for baked-in roleplay potential. Just by choosing the class, you're declaring that your character's backstory already includes major, morally ambiguous relationships with powerful supernatural entities. That's not a hook, that's a whole fishing net full of potential arcs, complications, and also emotional entanglements. A Warlock's vibe is instantly compelling. Whether your patron is a cosmic horror, a flamboyant fae, or your ex who just happens to be a devil now, told you, the stereotype is strong. Warlocks are frequently seen as broody, power-hungry loners, or edgy magic users with inferiority complexes, but that stereotype often opens up the door to some incredible subversions. What if your warlock loves their patron and calls them Uncle Beelzebub? What if they're blissfully unaware of the dark implications of their pact? What if the patron is actually trying to help and your warlock is the problem? This class thrives when players embrace the drama and twist the formula. What if your patron is the DM? When it comes to stats, warlocks are built around charisma. Chef's kiss for roleplay, they're persuasive, charming, and can lean into manipulation. Subduction, silver-tongue deception like the pros. Whether you're convincing the party to foul your questionable plan or negotiating with a lich, the warlock is equipped for social chaos. Plus, their low spell slot, high impact design encourages clever tinkering and creative resource management. In the ability department, invocations alone are a goldmine of customization. Want to see through illusions, read all languages, or blast people with agonizing force from 300 feet away while whispering sweet nothings to your patron? Done. Every choice you make mechanically reflects your character's relationship with their powers. Packed boons, blade, chain tome, all the stuff, they're all mini elements of identity statements. Your Warlock isn't just a spellcaster, they're a vessel, and the flavor writes itself. Did I mention the drama? If I didn't, well, Warlocks are made for drama. Their patron is always looming, always watching, judging, tempting, trying to get you to call them back. What did you give up for this power? What do they want in return? Will you rebel, stay loyal, or try to outsmart a being that thinks in eons? Warlocks turn every arc into a negotiation, a gamble, or a slow descent into something malicious. Even in light-hearted campaigns, the presence of an invisible third-party relationship adds a layer of intrigue that most classes can only dream of. And finally, to no one's surprise but maybe the Bard lands on our list in the S tier. Bards are the undisputed monarchs of roleplay potential. From their very concept, they're the characters who thrive on interaction. They're performers, storytellers, manipulators, diplomats, chaotic lovers. Choosing a bard says, I want to be in the middle of every scene. And the class delivers on that promise in spades. Whether you're inspiring the party with rousing speeches or derailing a serious plot moment with improvised limerick, the bard's vibe is magnetic. The stereotype? Absolutely iconic. Yes, people expect the flirty, flamboyant troublemaker who seduces their way through the dungeon, and diplomacy alike. But that's just one chord in a full symphony. Bards can be battle poets, sharp-tongued historians, dancers, tragic artists, or political operatives hiding a dagger behind every word. Subverting the stereotypes is easy, and it's often hilarious. But even leaning into it can lead to some of the most memorable roleplay moments at the table. And stat-wise, it's all charisma, baby. That means bards are natural stars in any social situation. Persuasion, deception, performances, intimidation, they've got it all. And they're usually experts in at least one of them, making them absurdly good at being the center of attention. The bard isn't just mechanically good at talking, they're narratively built for it. Add in the jack of all trades and their expansive skill list, and you've got a character that can have something clever to say or do in almost every scene. And then there's their magic. Bardic inspiration isn't just a buff, it's an in-character performance. Your spells are flavored with flair, music, poetry, or even whatever medium your bard uses, turning even a simple healing word into a character moment. In their spell list, a flexible buffet of enchantment, illusions, and support magic that opens the door to both clever problem-solving and theatrical chaos. With magical secrets, the bard can truly be whatever you want. And the drama, oh, the drama. Bards thrive on relationships, forging them, breaking them, performing them. Every conversation can be a roleplay hook. Every lie, ready for a bigger reveal. Characters who carry secrets, regret past glories, or use charm as a mask. Whether they're a joyous agent of chaos or a haunted lyricist singing their own slow downfall, bards are the story. They bring all the tools. Built-in social power, narrative flexibility, mechanical adaptability, and an invitation to be as serious or silly as the moment demands. No other class is perfectly designed to thrive in an RP-heavy campaign while still holding their own in every aspect of the game. We did it, adventurers. We completed a list of vibes from start to finish. I hope you made it to the end of this video, and a big thank you to my Discord members, free link in the video description below, for inspiring this topic. I'd love to know your thoughts on my ranking. What do you agree with or disagree with? What would you like to see different? Let's discuss in the video comments below. And make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Keep rolling those dice, and may your quests be epic.